I could have just told you my symptoms and then you could have guessed, because that's what they're doing anyway. It is, I did a TikTok video and said blood testing of hormones is a scam. It's a scam. Okay. If you can show me a patient who comes in with a hormone problem and they're premenopausal and show me that their blood tests show that they're abnormal, I want to see it, because it doesn't happen. Premenopausally, you go in, every time they're going to tell you your tests are normal. Postmenopausally, they're always going to tell you you have no hormones. It does not make any, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And you guys need to understand that. All right, next slide. Real experiences. Sarah, I'm just saying a name, but I can tell you I hear this probably 2 times a week. Sarah gained 200 pounds after starting estrogen therapy, yet her blood test showed she wasn't absorbing the medication. How could this be possible? The estrogen was clearly entering her tissues, just not showing up in the blood. So here's what happens. You go in and say that, the doctors look at your blood test, says, hey, you're not gaining weight because of the estrogen. You must be sneaking downstairs in the middle of the night eating when no one is watching. You're not exercising like you're telling me you are. You're cheating. And the patient gets offended because she's telling the truth. Why would she lie to you? She'll say, hey, that's why I said you can't diet and exercise your way past a hormone problem. And you can't. All right. So I can't tell you how many women come in and they tell me that the doctor told me it couldn't be from the estrogen because the blood test isn't showing that your levels are elevated. The testosterone puzzle. I just saw a guy last week, despite taking high doses of testosterone that pushed his blood levels to the upper range, like over 1,000, he still felt exhausted with low libido. The problem wasn't insufficient hormone. It was that his tissues were already saturated while his symptoms had another cause entirely. Now, here's what happened with these guys. If you ask somebody who's on testosterone, they've been on it for a year or two, what they will say is that, hey, when I first started taking this, man, I felt like I could conquer the world. It gave me more energy. I had more libido. I was chasing my wife around the house, and I felt so good. And then after 6 months or 8 months or 1 year or 2 years, it says, man, I keep taking this testosterone, but I really don't get that like I used to. Here's what happened. Doctor gave him testosterone. They increased the dose to get the blood level up. They did that over the course of 6, 8, 10 months, whatever. And they were overdosed. So what happened? You downregulate your receptors, where you can keep increasing that dose to high heaven, and the cells aren't going to respond. And here's the problem with testosterone. Remember, I told you how women could change testosterone into estrogen in their fat tissue. That's how they make their estrogen. Well, men can do it too. So if you give too much testosterone and those men have fat tissue, then it will start converting it into estrogen. And I can show you the saliva test of men where that has happened. And then we lower the testosterone dose, their estrogen goes down, their cells become responsive to it again. So it's not about giving them more testosterone. It's about lowering it so that their receptors can recognize it again. So it's the total opposite of what doctors are doing. Now, saliva testing isn't something that I created in a lab. Okay, it's not something that only I have done and I got a little lab downstairs and I mix up saliva. No. The Journal of Clinical Chemistry had a peer-reviewed research article. And if you saw my last podcast about vitamin C, peer-reviewed articles are the gold standard. All right. So peer-reviewed research demonstrated that saliva testing provides superior measurement for several hormones compared to serum testing, particularly for assessing bioactive hormone fractions. And there are about 30 or 40 studies on saliva testing. And I'll be happy to create a link. And if you're a physician or you want to take it to the physician, this is well documented. They have been doing saliva testing since 1960. That's the year I was born. So it's been around for 65 years. And I've been talking about it for 30 years. This is another article, the comprehensive review, and that's what you're looking. So these are review articles. They're looking at all the articles and coming up with a conclusion. The comprehensive reviews concluded that saliva offers an alternative to serum as a diagnostic fluid and is rich in hormones and other markers that accurately reflect the physiologic status. There's multiple scientific reviews. Numerous peer-reviewed publications have consistently shown that salivary hormone measurements reliably reflect the bioactive hormone fractions, the only ones that matter for symptom management and clinical outcomes. I don't know how you can get more clear than that. Those are the review articles. So you can look at all the articles yourself. But these review articles are looking at all the articles and compiling them and saying, what are all these articles proving? And it says the only ones that matter for symptom management and clinical outcomes is saliva hormone measurements. So, somebody wanted to debate me on TikTok. And I refused to do it because this is not debatable. It's not debatable. It's no, hey, I think this. You can think whatever you want. You can believe whatever you want, but that doesn't mean it's true. And true outweighs authority. So that's why I say I'm not going to debate anybody about this. The authorities are saying that this is true, that blood tests are worthless when you're looking at salivary hormone levels of fat-soluble hormones. They're useless. The textbook says it. This says saliva testing is superior. It's not debatable. And you're not arguing against me. You're arguing against science. Okay? So don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what the science says. And this is something your doctor is never ever going to tell you if he's using blood testing. And my patient last night who was on my question and answer said that the other doctors are trying to get her to stop doing the saliva testing. Why? This is what I'll tell you why. Doctors are always down on what they're not up on. So if they're not up on saliva testing, then they automatically tell you not to do it. Just like when I was talking about cancer and vitamin C, if they're not up on how vitamin C can help with cancer, then they're going to tell you not to do it. That's why you have to be your own health advocate. You have to take charge of your health. You have to. Okay. So anyway, let's move on. So why won't the doctors do it? It seems so elementary. Why won't they do it? Well, here's the reason why. It's because medical legally they're scared. Okay. What is the standard of care? Because that's what we get judged by. The standard of care, plain and simple, simply means what most doctors in your geographic area typically do. So it's really saying, hey, whatever everybody else is doing, no matter if it doesn't make any sense, no matter if it's non-scientific, if most doctors are doing it in your area, it becomes the standard of care. So it's not what science proves is best. It's a legal concept, not a scientific one. That's why doctors are afraid. And I have this picture. It's like that Caterpillar Land story that I have, is that we follow the leader even if they're going to lead us off a cliff. And we just do what we have been taught. That see one, do one, teach one. Is that if I see somebody else doing it, and if I see a lot of doctors drawing blood tests, and oh man, they're making money, they're giving these women hormones and they're coming back. And so, now that's the standard of care. And now that I'm saying that scientifically it doesn't make sense, it makes other doctors afraid. And you have to have the courage and you have to have the determination that you're going to find the truth and not take a shortcut and just do what everybody else is doing. So even when the medical practices are scientifically questionable, they become the norm if enough practitioners follow them. This creates powerful inertia against change, regardless of the evidence. It's just like the vitamin C. I have all this evidence that vitamin C works, but The standard of care in oncology is to say it doesn't work, even though it's false. Medical practices change slowly, often taking 17 plus years for new evidence to become standard practice. This means many doctors continue using outdated methods long after better alternatives exist. And this is talking about after 17 years. I've been trying to do this for 30 years, so it takes longer than 17 years to do some of this stuff. So that I hope I don't sound too frustrated, but I hope you understand why I could be a little bit frustrated when I keep preaching this sermon and nobody comes up and gives their life to saliva testing. You know, it's almost has to be divine intervention for docs to just look at something that is not the standard of care, and don't let someone lead you off a cliff because they have a title or because they have 1 million followers on Instagram or whatever. Just don't be led off of a cliff just because everybody else is doing something. I think I have one more slide. So your health deserves better, okay? Trust your symptoms. If you feel hormonally imbalanced despite normal blood test results, your body is sending you a signal that your testing method isn't capturing your experience